The Cold War was a worldwide confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union that lasted from the end of World War II to the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Soviet Union. The Cold War is denominated this way because there was no military action, although it did affect the social, political, and economic ideologies of that time. During decades, these two ideologies fought over world supremacy, with the winner imposing their political and ideological model to the rest of the world. We need to know that after World War II, these countries established themselves as the two most powerful countries in the world. The Soviet Union had power over the communist countries and the United States over the capitalist countries. What started the Cold War was that the United States was afraid that the Soviet Union was spreading their communist ideas to the rest of the world, and thus affecting world war market, meaning United States not being able to sell to them and also power over the countries. Because of this, the United States began expanding its military arsenal even after the peace agreement that had just been signed after World War II, and in consequence, the Soviet Union also became wary of the situation. As these two countries' tensions increased, the North American diplomat George Kennan in 1945 came up with a political strategy of contention, which sought to avoid the Soviet Union from further expanding and establish communist regimes. In March 12 of 1947, United States President Harry S. Truman announces in a speech upon Congress that the United States should support countries that refuse exterior attempts from the communist regime to impose this ideology by saying this was a national security threat to the United States. Upon this, contention became one of the main strategies from the United States. After suspicions inside the Russian government that the US was establishing military bases in European countries, Stalin decided to send 42 missiles to Cuba. In consequence, the United States threatened to attack the island. This was probably the closest point to which the Cold War might have turned into an actual war. Even if these countries weren't fighting in a direct way, the Cold War resulted in a war of Vietnam and also in Afghan, with the United States and the Soviet Union supporting one side. Another of the big confrontation scenes was when the Soviet Union decided to do a blockade in Berlin, which was ordered by Joseph Stalin. During 11 months, the government of Germany's capital was kept under strict control of the Soviet Union. After these 11 months, an agreement was reached and the Berlin blockade was finalized. The Soviet Union began getting weaker after losing the war against Afghanistan, and a year later, a treaty of the reunification of Europe meant they were losing power. The Soviet control over Europe had not made notable improvement, and on the contrary, it had worsened them economically. The end of the Cold War was caused by several events. The NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, was born as its objective to organize Europe after World War II and as a prevention from the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union then created the Council for Mutual Economic Assistance as their organization of prevention. The division of these two sides was called the Iron Curtain, and this union of communist countries began to break down due to the politics of reconstruction of Gorbachev and ended with the Warsaw Pact. With the end of this confrontation, a path for commercial relations opened for the rest of the world. Finally, the fall of the Berlin Wall marked the end of the Cold War on November of 1989. The Soviet Union could not maintain its ideology of communism not for even 75 years, while the structure of the United States is still up to date and is working and is the one that is used worldwide. For this to not happen again, the communist ideology has been almost completely banned from the world, except from North Korea and Cuba, which remains communist. Thank you for your attention. I'm Ana Paula Castañeda.